I'm here to tell you everything you need to know about fusion because these things go crazy and there's a lot of things you can do with it, so I gotta put you on. The fusion shrines you're gonna be doing on the Great Skyland right here. Hopefully somewhere. After you do those shrines, you're gonna have access to them. I know the gameplay trailers made it look really complicated, but here's the breakdown. So I'm sure as all of you have tried now, you put a tree branch to a tree branch and you saw your straight sword got longer. Just to preface though, you can fuse anything with anything. If you see a box, you can put that on your weapon. If you see an apple, you can put that on your tree branch and make an apple tree branch. I don't know why you'd want to do that, don't be weird. And you can fuse weapons on weapons, just like you saw in the trailer when, I forgot bro's name, but the creator of Zelda, when he put a spear onto a spear and the spear became really long. While it's helpful, what I found is that the weapon you attach your base weapon to, that weapon's durability will be used first. The fused weapon will be relying on the weapon you attached, its base durability. And if you haven't noticed, every weapon in this game is decayed. Say you put a tree branch onto a tree branch, it's only going to last about 4 to 5 hits since a tree branch's durability is only 4 to 5 hits. And once that happens, the weapon under it will start to lose durability as well. So you can actually lose your weapon on a fusion if it runs out of durability. Whereas if you fuse a material onto it, the material, from what I've found and just what I've tested in the game in general, it adds 25 flat durability onto your weapon, and what that means is that you can hit for 25 times with that material, and that's been the case for every material I've tested, and I've tested at least 10 or more materials, so pretty decent sample size. Again, I could be wrong, this is day 1, forgive me if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself in the comments. Something they also showed off is that you can fuse things onto shields, and you can get really creative with this. Things like puff shrooms, if a person hits it, it creates a smoke screen. This smoke screen is really good. Like, do not sleep on the materials. That's probably my biggest advice. Really test out the materials, see what works, see what doesn't work, see what interacts with certain mobs and what doesn't, because for me, smoke screens have been really fun to play around with. You can even see you can get a free sneak strike and the enemy's still just dazed. It's great. This is probably the most I've ever used materials and ever will, because I know in Breath of the Wild I really just overlooked anything that wasn't like attack up food or extra recovery. So play around with the materials, it's really fun. Something I found interesting though is, to my knowledge, they only have one type of arrow, which is the regular arrow, and it incentivizes you to actually fuse things to your shot mid-shot, and as you would expect, this opens up a lot of possibilities for either different elemental arrows, like making fire arrows by attaching a fire fruit onto it. Like, there's just so many things you can do now. It's really fun, and just like how in the gameplay trailer he shot a Keith's eyeball and it tracked, it was a homing arrow. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do with it. Like, I can just tell that the possibilities and the trick shots in this game are just gonna go hard. Some more things I may have not previously mentioned. If you fuse a weapon onto a weapon, it's gonna copy the base weapon's moveset. So you can see here how I put the stick onto the claymore, how it copies the claymore's moveset, or how if you fuse your finger to the subscribe button, it actually gives you a buff in game. You should try that one out. And it's kind of crazy the range that you're gonna be able to have. But again, just remembering how it's going to copy the fused weapon's durability up until it breaks, and then it's going to start to subtract from your base weapon's durability, so just keep that in mind. But hey man, sometimes you just need a really long stick. Like, it really got me sitting here thinking for real, like damn. Something I also found very helpful while I was exploring is, like I mentioned before, they have fire fruits, but they also have ice fruit and shock fruit. Now these 3 things are going to be your core elements for if you ever want elemental damage. They don't do a lot of fusion damage on its own, it only adds 1 extra damage, but what it does add is the elemental damage. I believe the elemental damage kind of scales on its own, so even though it says it's adding 1 damage, it's actually putting on a lot more. And some enemies have weaknesses to certain elements, like if you hit an ice person with fire, they'll straight up just die. These 3 things are going to be very helpful, not only with your bow shots, but just if you want some quick 1-hit elemental damage on your weapon. You can put ice fruit on your weapon and just freeze the person instantly, and then from there you can just hit them and they'll take 3 times the damage. So ideally you should have a couple of these fruits at all times, just so you can fit whatever situation you need it for. But there's even more to fusions than you previously thought. Fusing weapons will change the property of the base weapon, because you can see here my claymore being fused with a rock turns it into a hammer, and I can't cut this tree down now, but defusing it now allows me to cut the tree. There's a lot of different interactions in this game that will change the properties of your weapon, and you can use that to fit whatever situation you need. And with the Korok frond I just got from farming the trees, I'm going to show you guys something really cool that I found out. So if you put this on any of your weapons, you can shoot wind gusts just like the Korok leaf from Breath of the Wild, but what's cool about this one, similar to the one in Breath of the Wild, it doesn't use durability when you're shooting the wind gusts. But what's cool about this one is, since it's a material, you don't need to hold a weapon slot all the time if you want a Korok leaf. And that was the one thing holding back the Korok leaf in Breath of the Wild, is that you needed to have a weapon slot for it at all times if you wanted to carry it. But with this, you can just drop a Korok frond if you have one and not necessarily hold a weapon and just wait until you need it. So that alone makes it really cool to me because I can enjoy this a lot more. I don't have to hold a weapon slot just for a Korok leaf when I could have literally anything else. The Korok leaf is especially useful because you're on a sky island, and well, the nature of sky islands is if they fall off, they die. See, this one I call walking the dog, right? If you're struggling with someone, just keep pushing them, just keep blowing them, and keep blowing as hard as possible until they die. Wait, that didn't sound right. And somehow it gets more peak. The 4 gems in the game, Opal, Sapphire, Ruby, and Topaz, can actually, again, be fused to your weapon, and it's gonna create elemental damage. But this time it's gonna shoot out magic. So you can be a sort of battle mage with your sword, which is really cool. And something that they added is fusing Opal will give you a brand new magic, water magic. They did not even have this in Breath of the Wild. Like, this, oh, yo, when I found it out, bro, like I screamed, like I can't even hold it in, like I actually screamed. You can shoot it as a projectile, and it's an extension of your melee weapon. So that alone is really fun and cool to just mess around with. So outside of selling your gems, I'd advise having one of each on a weapon or a magic rod so you can fit whatever situation you need. But, and this goes for any fusion, if you take off the material that you use to fuse it, the material will break, so be wary. If you want to test things, be sure to drop a save, and then you can test things out so you can load back when you're done. Because to my knowledge, that same 25 hits of extra durability I mentioned earlier, if you use the weapon for 20 hits and you take off the material and putting on another one expecting it to restore the durability, it's actually not going to do that. So don't switch and swap around materials on your weapon thinking it's going to restore the durability. But the final thing is that depending on the fusion, you can actually either raise your body heat or cool yourself down based on the temperature. So say if you're in a frosty region, you see how I can put my ruby on my sword, and the heat from the ruby is actually going to keep me warm, so I need to wear no cold resistance. So keep something ice infused and fire infused on you at all times. But fusions have even more depth than you thought. Eventually on the Sky Island, you're going to find Zonai devices, and these Zonai devices again can be fused, but certain Zonai devices can actually interact with either your shield or your weapon. For example, if you put a flame emitter on either your shield or your sword, it's going to spew fire whenever you attack or whenever you hold up your shield. It will use your battery and it will drain your durability though, even if you're not hitting anyone, so be wary of that as well. But you can even look at, say for example, if you put the bird Zonai on your shield jump will actually be slightly higher, and you can start a glide at any point. Try them out in your game and let me know in the comments what works for you. Subscribe if you enjoyed. You can click here for my 25 tips and tricks that I'm sure some of you guys don't know. Thank you for watching. Love and light.